So, hi, I'm Chrissy McCagney. Ryeface is here. Sort of. And then Miss Ashley Beaver's here and Miss Kelsey Keel's here.
Hello.
We are all that makes up Black Iron Nutrition. So we did a seminar yesterday, and how many people came? We did a free seminar.
25
or 30.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty good. So we did things a little differently since there was 3 of us, because I find the biggest issue with teaching seminars is that we get a variety of levels of people. And what's really hard with a seminar, and any other people who out there listening who do seminars can attest to this, we have people show up that have never tracked their food, never done flexible dieting before. And then we have people show up that are active flexible dieters. And then we have people show up who are coaches. So obviously that's, you all right over there?
Yeah, sorry.
Obviously that's 3 very different people.
Yes.
And you would teach a seminar differently for each of those groups of people. So luckily yesterday, since there was 3 of us, we got to split everybody up, which was kind of nice. Mm-hmm. And I worked with the people interested in coaching. Mm-hmm. Kels took the beginners, and Beeves took the intermediate people.
There's definitely people in my group who belonged in the intermediate.
Really?
Yeah,
It was funny when we
intimidated.
started, you said beginners. I think 2 people raised their hand. Mm-hmm. And then when they split up, like half of them went to her group.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they got scared or what, but
Yeah, I even said to them, if you think you're a beginner,
Yeah.
go there. If you think you're intermediate, go here. So, I don't know. To me, a beginner is somebody who's never done flexible dieting
Right,
before,
right.
or is like in their first month or something like that.
We had some people that, we had 2 clients actually that were there. And it was nice because they got to talk about their experience a little bit.
Yeah.
But like we got into nutrient timing a little bit
Yeah.
too. Like things that probably were more intermediate.
Intermediate.
But it was good. It was
Yeah.
a good group of...
I had 3 people in my group. It was good though. I basically just have a list of shit on my phone written right here about stuff that I've noticed with client check-ins. So we figured we would just, did someone just come in?
no, close the door.
Oh. And basically, I guess we'll just kind of go down this list. One thing that I have on here that is going to apply across the board to everybody listening has to do with daily weigh-ins to track fluctuations. And a lot of my clients will check in once a week or weigh themselves once a week or maybe twice. So we're not able to see fluctuations. And that could have been a week high for all we know, because since they didn't weigh themselves, any other day of the week, we don't have the proper data to know if they're actually losing or not. Because weighing yourself once a week, if you weigh yourself after like a high intensity training day or a high sodium day, the scale is going to be up.
Yeah.
Whereas a lot of times if people weigh themselves after a rest day, the scale might be down. So as a coach, I really try to have all of our newer clients. I mean, I try to tell everybody to just weigh themselves daily, not because we care what the scale says, but just to track fluctuations.
Yeah.
Because I explained yesterday that girl asking, how do you know if you're sensitive to sodium?
Yeah.
If you're eating almost the same thing every single day and your macros and calories are within 5 grams of each other every day, there's no reason your weight should be all over the place. In theory,
Right.
But if you're looking at if you're eating the same thing every day, let's say you make your menu for the week and you eat the same exact thing every single day, your weight might fluctuate due to sodium, and that's just one thing that we try to look at. And so by paying attention to weight fluctuations, we can usually go in and see what caused weight spikes or what caused weight loss. So if you're one of our clients listening, this is why we have you weigh yourself daily. But even if you're just, trying to get your own nutrition dialed in by weighing yourself every morning, and I log my weight into my FitnessPal every day just to keep track, since we all know I don't use the spreadsheet. So every day I wake up, weigh myself, go into my FitnessPal, hit log weight, and then I put it in there. Because the other cool thing my FitnessPal does is shows you a graph.
Yeah.
So it's shown me from when I was 190 pounds all the way down to 140. So it's been kind of like you can see that graph and see that progress. So the scale, this is what I always try to tell the clients. The scale can measure progress, but it doesn't measure your self-worth. So even if the scale goes down like a half a pound over the course of the week, and I just really try to beat it into the client's head, let the scale measure fluctuations, and that's it. Don't let it measure, your self-worth or anything like that.
Yeah, we have a few people that I've told just to stay off the scale, even though weight loss is their number one goal.
Right.
Because it sends them into a little bit of a downward spiral with their just mental side of it. But like I just finished a check-in and she said something like, "Oh, my weight's up, but my clothes are fitting a little
Right.
bit looser and my energy level is extremely high. I'm feeling good."
Yeah.
So clearly no mental hang-ups with the weight going up a little bit, and checked her sodium and it was a bit high yesterday. So things like that. Obviously we want the data, but there are those few clients that we need to just say,
Struggle
just
with that.
Yeah.
Stay
And
off.
that's also why we have our clients measure waist and
Waist
whatnot,
and
because
pictures and-
even the Andersons last week,
Yeah.
I think that neither of them lost any weight, or they might have been up a pound, but Zach was like another inch down on his waist.
Yeah.
Huge.
It's
Yeah. So I explained to him, like, you did make progress, because I know for me personally, if I was trying to lose weight, if my waist went down an inch, and even if the scale went up a pound, I'd be fucking pumped.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
even like a half an inch, that's so much. So definitely, as along with weigh-ins, there's like lots of other ways to make sure you're making progress. What else do I have on here? I work with a lot of regionals athletes, and a lot of them that qualified were talking about nutrient timing with their carbs. And they always ask me, would I rather them front load or back load their carbs? And that just comes down to the type of athlete you are. I mean, obviously 50-50 is one way to take it. The way we do things with Black Iron Nutrition is we encourage, is it 70%? We encourage our athletes to get about 70% of their carbs 2 hours before or after their training session. So however long your training session is, the 2 hours before, the 2 hours after, and that's for fuel and recovery purposes. But it just depends what type of person you are. It depends how you recover.
Yeah.
And
I think we're kind of the perfect example of
Very
it.
different.
Yeah. Like
You guys
I
are.
like pre-workout carbs. I
Yeah.
always feel like I need the
And
extra
more
fuel.
fat and protein, and then a lot of carbs post workout.
Yeah.
Yeah. See, and that's that right there's a good example. That's gonna come down to the person. There's some people who like to train fasted. They just do
Yeah.
better
Yeah.
training fasted, and that's fine. If it's working for you and you're training well, don't let anybody try to tell you, oh, well, you need pre-workout carbs, because clearly you
You're
might
fine.
not. Yeah, you're fine.
You're working. It's
Um,
working.
And then also, Ashley likes post-workout carbs, and that comes down to how well you recover. I noticed for me personally, food doesn't aid my recovery as much. I notice I don't
good.
get sore that often, but it seems like even if I slam carbs, if I'm gonna get sore, I'm just gonna get sore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
So, but I have noticed physically, or like from like a CNS standpoint though, like if I wake up the next morning after training and my grip, I can't like make a solid fist and my grip feels off, it's usually because I didn't eat enough the day before. But that's my CNS not recovering well, not opposed to my
Right.
muscles. So again, that's going to be all trial and error and everything like that. A couple of clients have been asking how I would handle someone whose nutrition is affecting their mood. A couple of our clients have mental illness, and Paul Southern, of all people, talked to me a lot about nutrition and
Yeah.
eating appropriately for
Yeah.
mental illness, because obviously Drew had bipolar
Yeah.
and stuff. So we talked about that with him a lot. And I find with me personally, and Kels can probably attest to this too a little bit. I don't know about Ash, but probably letting nutrition affect your mood. I think for most people, the guilt component is responsible for that.
Yeah.
I don't think the food itself can actually affect your mood, so to speak.
Right.
But I do think that the feelings surrounding food, like, if you have a bad weekend of not tracking or something like that, and then you wake up, and there's times with me, I'll wake up grumpy, not even realizing it's from me being not the most pumped on my nutritional habits.
Right.
And then if I really think about it, I'm like, okay, I'm bummed out because of the scale took a 4-pound jump, or because I fucking
Right.
ate 6 donuts last night and a pint and a half of Halo Top. So I think it's more so, it's not the food itself.
Yes.
And I think by improving your relationship with food, is he snoring?
Yeah.
The dogs are in here right now. They're, I think by improving your relationship with food, you're going to kind of prevent that. Do you guys want to touch on this?
Yeah, I think I agree with that, but I also think maybe just like thinking back in my past when I wasn't eating a healthy diet, I think maybe I wasn't. I wouldn't say was depressed, but I definitely wasn't as happy and energetic as I am now. When I eat personally whole foods and stuff, I have more energy, and I think I'm just a happier person.
Yeah.
But that's just my lifestyle too. I think that makes me happier.
So I have a question. Do you think you were depressed because of your body image, or do you think it was actually because you weren't eating super nutrient dense foods at the time, or a combination of the two?
I think it might be a combination of the two. I definitely was not happy with my body image.
Yeah.
Definitely. But I also think I just felt slow, sluggish. The foods that
Yeah.
maybe I was just overeating too. Maybe
Yeah.
more so. I guess it's hard to know because I guess I never back then ate in moderation crappy foods.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's hard to correlate maybe.
Yeah.
But I know I feel a lot better now eating healthier foods.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
I went to a Lane Norton seminar a couple years ago, and he was talking about how when people are on a cut, the second you start to see results, like see abs, and you can noticeably see your results, that like mentally the cut gets easier because almost like that excitement over the changes in your body can almost mask the fact that you're hungry and
Right,
miserable.
yeah.
And I always thought that was really interesting too, because there's definitely been times where I've been on a cut where I was hungry, but it's almost like it didn't bother me as much because I was seeing the results come.
Right.
And mentally that overrode the feelings of hunger. It's almost like it made me actually be like, well, maybe I'm not that hungry. It's really strange how that works.
brain was happy. Yeah. That is interesting.
Yeah. So it's even still like right now I get in like ruts because I don't have any goals, or I'm not like eating or training for anything right now. So I'm kind of just like eating what I want, mostly in moderation, except for the past couple nights. And it's weird though. Like I get in this like weird rut of like, well, I'm not training for I don't need to make weight for anything anytime soon. So I'm going to loosen up on my nutrition. And then I look in the mirror this morning and I'm like, oh, I look fluffy. But then it's like, I'm in that,
Yeah, it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah, exactly. I'm in that vicious cycle of like, all right, do I start training for something? Do I start eating for something? But it's like the realistic thing is if I'm not training for eating or eating for anything, I guess I could start training and eating for Cabo.
Yeah.
I could do a little 30-day challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that I think obviously if you're eating a bunch of shitty food, you're going to feel shitty for the most part. But I do think that it's more so like the psychological component with food
Totally.
that affects, mental illness and stuff like that, like the guilt or the regret or the stuff like that. So I was listening to a Brute Strength podcast the other day, and Dr. John Brady was on it, and he made an analogy that I wanted to mention here because it really like hit home for me. He talked about progression with nutrition, and he made the analogy of like progression in the gym. So he made the analogy of what happens the first time someone walks into a CrossFit gym and all they know is like cardio. They've never touched a weight in their life. And he made the analogy that when you walk into the gym, is the coach going to be like, all right, load up the bar and do a clean and jerk.
Right.
Load up the bar and do a snatch. Like never. That's never going to happen. It's always going to be a progression, and there's progressions to learn Olympic lifting and all types of, and any type of like gymnastics or anything you would find in a CrossFit or weightlifting or powerlifting gym. And he talked about the progression to learning that skill, and nutrition is the same exact thing. Like it's a progression to learn the skill. And so I was explaining to the coaches yesterday, let's say we have a brand new client who has never, this is all brand new.
Yeah.
We're not going to have them come in and say, all right, do a clean and jerk, do a snatch, hit all your macros that on in your calories. Here's 4 numbers, plus you have to look at
Sodium,
fiber,
Yeah.
and sugar. So there's 7 numbers we need you paying attention to. Okay, do it. And that's not a realistic approach at all whatsoever. So I was explaining to the coaches yesterday, and we've kind of talked about this before, is if you have someone who's brand new, the first thing, obviously most important thing you need to teach them is about calories. So that's your first progression. You go in and you say like, hit your calories every day for a week or 2 weeks or however long it takes. And once they learn the skill of tracking their calories, then you teach them the skill of hitting their protein, because that's going to, be next in the hierarchy. That's going to be the next important. And so you teach them that skill of tracking their protein and hitting their protein and their calories. And then you go in and teach them the skills of hitting, fat and carbs. And then from that point, they're like, okay, I think I have the whole macro calorie thing down. You let them get comfortable with it, and then you can throw in the fancy stuff, which again is just another skill to teach,
Yeah.
And it comes down to like, okay, now we're going to talk about nutrient timing, or maybe you need a refeed, or maybe we need to carb cycle.
Yeah.
And I think too many coaches try too hard right at first to be like, okay, you have to do all this. And then a lot of coaches will look at their client's week as like a fail or pass. When it's not that black and white. So it comes down to, building that progression the same way you teach progressions with stuff in the gym.
I think we see a lot of people come in. Well, we have a decent amount of new clients right now who are in their first month, and they check in after 2 weeks, and they're like, "Why haven't you changed my numbers?" For one, or they get mad that they haven't hit their numbers spot on. And like you said, you're not going to go snatch a ton of weight the first 2 weeks.
You're not,
in
or
the
you're not
gym,
even.
So
I've been trying to learn how to snatch for like 3 years now, and it's still ugly. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I can put 125, 135 pounds on the bar and like monkey fuck it up, but it's like it's ugly. It doesn't look good, and I know I need to practice the progressions to get to piece it all together. And it's going to be the same thing with your nutrition, like that. And I think that's why so many people want to get on a meal plan and do something extreme, and then they fail and then they quit.
They get so down on themselves. It's like,
but it's the same shit with lifting. You know, like I know me personally. Yeah, I know me personally when I actually am being diligent about my Olympic lifting and practicing, I make progress.
Right.
But the second I stick it on the back burner and kind of quit putting in effort when it comes back to it, and I suck at it, I just want to quit. But if I quit, I'm never going to get good at it. And it's the same thing with nutrition. Like, there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be better days. There's going to be worse days. And it just comes down to sticking. He's so fat. Sticking to it and being consistent and putting in the work and learning those skills and learning those progressions.
yeah.
Because I think another thing, like you were just saying with clients, is 2 weeks in, they'll be like, do I get a refeed day? Can I carb cycle now? Can I this, that? And I'm like, you can't even hit your fucking numbers, pal. Like, focus on, let's focus on the simpler stuff right now, because that's another thing is I look at a number change almost as like a reward.
Yeah.
I'm not going to change unless they are completely incapable of hitting them for whatever reason. I'm not going to change your numbers if you haven't even like tried to hit them.
Right.
And I think too many people just want to like, oh, let's switch it up. Let's switch it up. It's like me lowering your carbs 5 grams isn't going to change shit. Like, it comes down to your food choices to switch stuff up. Like, if you really want to, if you're one of those people that wants to switch up your nutrition, like at least if you're one of our clients, like I suggest switching up your food choices and your, nail down your nutrient timing and stuff like that. Everything else I have on here is kind of like, well, I'll mention this too. About being extreme with nutrition. We talked about this yesterday. Moderation and balance isn't sexy. It's not fancy. It's like, people hear, oh, everything in moderation and create balance. And to most people, the concept of moderation and balance isn't like a sexy, flashy thing, which is why and obviously the extreme transformations in a short amount of time are more like jaw-dropping and like, that it's sexy and fancy and flashy. It's like, oh, look at this extreme transformation this person made in 6 weeks by being on an extreme diet where they were hungry the entire time and they were probably too tired to train and, stuff like that. And the extreme approach is rarely a good one. Take it from me. I spent most of my life knowing nothing about moderation and balance. You can tell that just by looking at me. And it comes down to like, I understand that the fast extreme thing is more like hardcore and I get that. And I get it's more appealing, but at the same time, I know so many people who have taken the hardcore gnarly approach and they're only in shape when they do that.
Right.
Because I've heard it all. I've heard, oh yeah, I was single-digit body fat for a while when I did this, this, and this. And I'm like, well, why aren't you single-digit body fat now? And it comes down to
Body
something,
didn't adapt to that.
something that's sustainable and realistic for the long-term approach. Because if you're going to be one of those people that can do something super hardcore and intense for 4 weeks, but that's it, you're never gonna, you're never gonna find that balance, and you're gonna always be yo-yoing with your weight and everything like that.
Well, that's something that we kind of preach, is that this is not a quick fix. We're not going to give you some magical set of numbers that you're going to drop 20 pounds in a month.
Yeah, it's
like we want you to be able to eat for your life. This is nutrition. This is like, and this is something that you can sustain.
That's
forever.
another thing I talked about yesterday with the coaching staff or with the people that wanted to learn about coaching. Obviously, there's a couple other big nutrition companies out there that are well known. I'm not going to name names, but I know because we pick up some of their clients. They tell us that those previous coaches or that previous service looked at their week as you adhered or you didn't. So I can look at anyone's week and I can see, they don't need to tell me with their check-ins. Hey, I can look at their sheet and say, okay, you didn't adhere. So instead of saying, okay, you didn't adhere to your numbers, do it again this week better. I want to know why they didn't stick to the plan. Yeah. So instead, I could easily just say, you didn't do what I told you to do it right this week, have a good week. And that could be their check-in and I could keep their $80 a month and it would be we probably wouldn't have good client retention, who knows. But instead, we see and we say, okay, what's going on? Why didn't you hit your numbers? Mm-hmm. And depending on the reasoning, from there, we decide what needs to change. Because if the reasoning was just life just got in the way, their dog died or they're going through a breakup or relatives in the hospital for whatever reason, we can say like, okay, take care of your personal life and, take care of your mind and everything like that. And then we'll worry about nutrition when things are back to normal.
Yeah.
Or it could be a number of reasons, and what we try to figure out is the why. And we look at that psychological component with food and try to figure out why somebody's not seeing success. Because if we could figure that problem out, the rest of it's easy. Losing weight's easy. You just fucking eat less. It's like scientifically, it's not a hard thing to achieve, but mentally it's very difficult. What else do I have on here? Another thing I have on here is like as a coach, and I kind of went on a Twitter rant about this the other day. As a coach, it's important to be able to coach everyone. And I think that as a coach, I think you're blocking yourself into a corner if you just say, I'm only going to coach if it fits your macros. I'm only going to coach paleo. Right. I'm only going to have all my clients do keto. And I feel like that's not going to allow you to flourish as a coach. So one thing about us is, obviously we favor flexible dieting. We favor, a loose tracking macro approach. Tighten it up if you're not getting the results you want. If you are getting good results, you can go ahead and loosen it up. And, obviously the tracking and logging thing doesn't have to be a forever thing. If you can get to the point where you can eyeball stuff. So for the most part, we pick a very flexible approach to nutrition, but I do have a handful of clients that want to do keto and we do that. And we have some people who eat paleo. Yeah. We've got some people who are vegans, some people who won't eat vegetables. And I think that it's really important to be willing to coach everybody. Yeah. And, I also think as a coach, it's really important to not knock other coaching styles, because let's say we decided to sit here and use this time on the podcast to talk shit about John Smith, who only makes meal plan bro diets. Mm-hmm. Us sitting here knocking meal plan bro diets is not going to do anything. It's not going to do no good for anybody. Mm-hmm. So it just comes down to you believing in your own approach and being multidimensional, and I try really hard now to not say a word about other people's coaching, because what good is that going to do? I can roll my eyes here and there with stuff, but I've noticed a lot of people who are big on like the keto or the bro approach really like to knock flexible dieting, and flexible dieting is not going anywhere. So it's one of those things where it's like you're not doing any good by making the obnoxious Instagram posts about how you haven't had a donut for 5 years. Like it just looks douchey. And so I think it's really important to just not knock other people's approaches and just, firmly believe in your own. Also as a coach, yesterday in my group, somebody asked how do you handle a situation where a client comes to you and is dead set on a certain approach that you don't agree with? So like, let's take keto, for example. Mm-hmm. I would prefer not to put too many people on keto. Like obviously if you have a ton of weight to lose, and I think keto is a very temporary thing because hormonally the damage it can do to your body over a long period of time isn't healthy. So I personally don't care for it as much, but I do have a couple clients on it because it was, doctor prescribed or it just works for them. If someone comes to me and tells me that they know they get the best results from keto, I'm going to say, okay, we can do keto. But, there's going to be times where it happens to me often. I've had 4 or 5 girls come to me and insist they want to do keto to lose weight, but the issue is they don't need to lose weight or they're athletes or something. And I'm like, you can lose weight not doing keto. Keto's not the only weight loss diet. So at that point in time, you're going to find people who are stubborn, who are dead set on wanting to do keto. And so at that point in time, you need to do everything you can as a coach to convince them otherwise. And if they're still not interested, you just need to meet each other halfway and say, okay, we can try this, but if it doesn't work after 4 months, we're going to switch to my way. And then you still obviously need to put in effort as a coach. Your job isn't to try to prove them otherwise.
Right.
I mean, obviously you still want to help them, but I think that just comes down again to, as a coach, being multidimensional and being willing to coach everybody. And it's a challenge, especially if you're not too well versed on keto. It'll force you to read up on it a little bit and you're going to learn something from it.
Yeah.
I think as coaches, it's very important for us to know about all the different diets out there too.
Absolutely.
And, it has worked for people. So if someone is set on it, I agree, they should be allowed to try it. And they're coming to us for help. So we're going to be there to help them along the way, to check in with them. And then, if it doesn't work out, we can shift them into a different direction. But I think as coaches, it's really important for us to learn everything that's out there. And everyone's so different. We don't know what's going to work. So having an open mind is definitely the most important thing as a coach.
100%. This is something else I talked about yesterday too. Inclusion versus exclusion. And I was explaining yesterday, if somebody's not hitting their macros or they're hitting all their macros and stuff, but they don't feel good, they're tired, it might come down to their food choices for the most part. Especially if they're not hitting their macros or their sodium's through the roof. That's or they're not getting enough fiber. So if fiber and macros are low and sodium and sugar look high, but they're hitting their macros and their calories and they're still getting results, they probably don't feel great. What we were talking about yesterday is how I really am a fan of encouraging the inclusion route, include more veggies, more fruits, more high fiber foods, with a nutrient dense profile, opposed to encouraging people to exclude foods. So if let's take Kelsey, let's say her iron was kind of low and her macros were low. I think other coaches, the first thing they would do is probably try to tell her to cut the Halo Top ice cream out at night or cut the cookies out, something like that, or you shouldn't have had that donut. But instead of I think that brings us back to the good food, bad food thing. And that breeds an unhealthy relationship with food. Like you as a coach, that would be me telling Kelsey ice cream's bad, which I don't think ice cream's bad at all. Everything in moderation. So instead of me telling Kelsey, instead of telling her to exclude certain foods, I'm going to encourage her to include more, microdense foods, more greens, anything like that. So that's going to be on Kelsey. If she knows she has to add in more vegetables and include them more, she should add those back in, and then she'll need to see that maybe she doesn't need to exclude Halo Top, but maybe she needs to monitor her portion size. And that's going to teach her portion control over the stuff she likes, opposed to me saying, let's just exclude that food entirely, which is going to make you miserable.
Right.
And I would never, ever, ever, if someone came to me and they're like, I just fucking love Ben & Jerry's and I want to eat it every night. Say, okay, well, because of where your macros and fiber are at, I need you to hit your macros every day by including more healthy foods, or more micro-rich foods. And then it's going to be on that person to look at their diet and say, all right, maybe I should cut my serving size in half, or maybe I should have just had 1 donut instead of 2 or 3. And I think that really teaches people a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
So that's another huge thing is I hear too many coaches saying to just completely exclude sugar, and that just fucking sounds like it sucks.
I feel like we have a few clients right now that are trying to do detoxes and Whole30s and all of that. And they ask me, is this okay? Do you think I should be doing this? And I think that some people can benefit from, eliminating, but I know also a lot of people get so restrictive that it causes a binge. And so I think there's benefit in trying it if you think it's going to work for you. But if you're I also think they get so restrictive that they actually end up binging healthier foods,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's still a binge. If you go eat a whole cup of, almonds because that's all you're
Right.
allowed to have, but you're just craving something. You finish that cup of almonds and realize it didn't really satisfy you, but you just ate because you didn't have anything else. You felt like you couldn't have a little bit of ice cream.
Right.
Whereas maybe if you had that in moderation, you would have
Yeah.
just stopped there and been happy. So I think there's different clients that can do the elimination and be okay with
Yeah.
it, and others that need to have moderation.
Yeah, I know for me personally, anytime I've tried to completely eliminate something, there was one time in college for my substance abuse class, we had to do research on, we had to eliminate something we thought we were addicted to from our diet or from our lifestyle. So there was people and it was like a 30-day elimination thing, and we had to explain mentally like what we were going through. So it was, whether it was drinking, gambling, smoking cigarette, it could have been anything, sex. Like our teacher said, literally take something you probably overdo and completely cut it out for a month, and I want you to write about what you experience. So at that point in time, I was sober from drugs. How old was I? I think I was 21, and it was like one of those brief instances where I didn't do any coke. I think I hadn't done drugs for like 6 months or something like that, but I was still drinking really heavily. But when I quit doing coke that time, I got really gung-ho on sugar, like bad. Like I'm talking, I was eating 3 or 4 bags of Sour Patch Kids a day. I was like addicted.
Yeah.
And it got to the point where I couldn't even drive past a CVS or a Walgreens on the way home because I would stop and go in and get fucking 6 bags of Sour Patch Kids or like gummy worms or something, eat the whole thing. So I told myself I was going to quit eating sugar for that 30 days. I straight up went through withdrawals. I was sweating. I was agitated. It was the craziest thing, quitting sugar for that month, because I felt the same way I did going through cocaine withdrawals when I quit. It was insane. Yeah. And it's crazy just to like think about that alone. But then that in turn, like when you completely eliminate something from your diet, like what do you think would happen if I ate meat? I haven't touched meat for over a year, and if I were to eat meat right now, I'd probably get very, very sick.
Yeah.
And it comes down to, if you want to eliminate something for whatever reason, like I know I eliminated meat for life. That was a decision, meat and chicken for life. But like saying you're going to eliminate sugar for life, that's not very realistic at all whatsoever.
Sugar in so many things.
But it comes down to like when you eliminate something and you don't consume it, the second you bring it back in, you get very sick.
Yeah.
That's like the whole gluten thing, the whole gluten-free trend that, how crazy it was for a while. Like if you have celiac disease, you shouldn't eat gluten. And I think you should even like monitor your gluten consumption for the most part, especially like it makes my skin break out when I have too much. But I don't completely eliminate it because I know that's not realistic for me. And my fear is when I bring it back in, I'm going to feel like shit.
Yeah.
That's with anything though. Like that's why people who do Whole 30 eliminate all that shit out of their diet. And then even if they bring it back in moderation, they can have fucking half a cookie and they feel awful. So I just think the full 100% elimination thing, it has to be like super, super, super special circumstances.
Yeah.
I don't foresee myself ever eating meat again. I don't miss it by any means, but if I just think about what would happen if I were to eat meat or chicken, I would probably shit and throw up all over the place and feel like death for a couple days. But that's because I made it something foreign to my body.
Yeah.
So I don't even know where the fuck I was going with all that.
Yeah.
It just came down to the inclusion, exclusion thing. And instead of, as a coach, in my opinion, instead of focusing on exclusion, you should focus on inclusion and really promote, let's add more healthy foods in. Let's do a handful of spinach into your protein shake or into your eggs in the morning. And let's add these healthier foods. And then the client is, as they're hitting their macros, those healthier foods are going to take up more carbs, and it's going to be on them to portion control and dial back some of the other stuff. Because that's all it comes down to. And there's even times if like somebody, like we've had clients in the past who were like, something's not adding up here. They're hitting their numbers perfect and for the most part, but they're not getting results, and they should be getting results on the macros they're on. And it usually comes down to people not being accurate with their portions. Like the old peanut butter example. Have you ever looked at 2 tablespoons of peanut butter? Like Rye Face talks about this all the time.
It's so irritating.
The old Wayne
Tablespoon is like this.
Well, the old weighing and measure, or like the weighing versus measuring Instagram posts, the side by side.
Yeah.
That eating more food means you're eating more calories.
Yeah, right.
Interesting.
So yeah, we just wanted to do we had Ashley in town, so we figured we would just do a quick nutrition podcast. This was largely for, our 300 or so remote clients. We are taking on new clients right now. Dare I say it? Black Iron Nutrition is taking on clients right now. You can email us at blackironnutrition@gmail.com. You'll be dealing with myself, Kelsey, and Ashley. Or if you go to my Gumroad, you can just you can see the link right there and see what you're getting yourself into. But yeah, we just figured we would do an informative podcast for once.
I think that was very informative. We went over a lot of good topics.
Yes. All right, guys. Thanks.
Cool.
Bye.
Bye.